The crash. Emergency in the void. Commander Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her brow as she checked the navigation console of her cargo freighter, Starbound Horizon. The massive ship carried 30 tons of medical supplies bound for the frontier colonies near the Vega Nebula. At 34, Elena had spent 12 years running cargo routes through some of the most dangerous sectors of known space. Her weathered hands moved with practiced precision across the control panels, her dark eyes constantly scanning for threats. "Status report on our passenger," Elena called to her eye assistant. Thrackmore of the Corvini delegation remains in his quarters. Vital signs stable, though elevated. This appears normal for his species during space travel, the AI responded in its calm, synthetic voice. Elena nodded. The 7-foot-tall alien warrior had boarded at Titan Station 3 days ago, bound for the peace negotiations on Kepler 442 bits. The Corvini Empire had been humanity's enemy for nearly a decade, but recent developments suggested both species were ready to discuss ending the conflict. Thrackmore was their chief diplomatic envoy, and Elena was tasked with delivering him safely to the talks. The cargo pilot's military background made her uncomfortable around former enemies, but she respected the peace process. Her 5 years in the Earth Defense Corps had taught her the true cost of war. Too many good people had died in battles that might have been avoided through diplomacy. "Incoming transmission on emergency frequency," the AI announced suddenly. Elena's blood ran cold. Emergency frequencies meant only one thing in this sector. "Put it through." "This is Captain Rex Morrison of the Crimson Fleet." A gravelly voice filled the bridge. "You're carrying a Corvini diplomat, and we can't let that peace process happen. Surrender now, and we might let you live." Elena's fingers flew over the weapon controls. The Crimson Fleet was a rogue human faction that profited from the ongoing war. They sold weapons to both sides and had no interest in peace. "This is Commander Vasquez of the Starbound Horizon. I'm carrying humanitarian supplies under the Geneva Accords. Stand down immediately." Morrison's laugh was harsh and cold. "Those accords don't apply to alien lovers. You've got 60 seconds to cut engines and prepare for boarding. The battle begins." Elena's military training kicked in as she activated the ship's defensive systems. The Starbound Horizon wasn't a warship, but it carried enough firepower to defend against pirates. "AI, seal all decks and prepare for combat. Send a distress signal on all frequencies." "Acknowledged. Shall I inform our passenger of the situation?" "Do it. And tell him to strap in tight." The first missile struck the ship's port shields, sending shockwaves through the hull. Elena gritted her teeth as she maneuvered the massive freighter, trying to keep the more heavily armed pirate vessels from getting a clean shot. Her cargo ship was tough, but it wasn't built for this kind of fight. Through the reinforced glass of her bridge, Elena could see 3 sleek attack ships closing in. Their hulls gleamed with weapon ports and modification scars. The Crimson Fleet had clearly invested their war profits in serious firepower. Bridge to passenger quarters, Elena spoke into her comm. "Thrackmore, we're under attack by human pirates. They want to stop you from reaching the peace talks." The response came in heavily accented but clear English. "Commander Vasquez, I understand. My people have contingency plans for such situations. I will not allow my presence to endanger your crew." "Negative. My job is to get you to those talks, and that's exactly what I'm going to do." Another missile barrage rocked the ship. Elena's console sparked as overloaded circuits began to fail. The pirates were systematically targeting her engines and navigation systems, trying to disable rather than destroy. They'd wanted their prize intact. "Hull breach on Deck 7, the AI reported. "Emergency bulkheads are holding, but structural integrity is compromised." Elena's jaw tightened as she watched her ship slowly dying around her. But she had one advantage the pirates didn't expect. Her cargo hold contained more than just medical supplies. Desperate measures. "AI, unlock military supply container 77 Alpha," Elena commanded. "That container is classified under." Emergency override. Authorization Vasquez, Delta 77. Acknowledged. Container unlocked. Elena smiled grimly. The container held experimental plasma charges originally designed for mining operations. They weren't weapons, but they would do. Prepare to jettison containers on my mark. Target the lead pirate vessel. The freighter shuddered as more enemy fire found its mark. Elena could smell smoke and burning circuits. Her ship wouldn't last much longer under this assault. Jettison now. 6 containers tumbled from the starbound Horizon's cargo bay, drifting toward the lead pirate ship. The enemy captain obviously thought it was cargo being dumped to lighten the load. He didn't realize his mistake until Elena triggered the remote detonator. The explosion lit up space like a miniature star. The lead pirate vessel vanished in a ball of superheated plasma, taking Captain Morrison and his crew with it. The other 2 ships immediately broke off their attack, clearly not expecting such fierce resistance from a cargo hauler. "This isn't over," came a transmission from one of the retreating ships. "The Crimson Fleet doesn't forget, and we don't forgive." Elena slumped in her chair as the pirates disappeared into hyperspace. She'd won the battle, but her ship was dying. Main power was failing, life support was running on backup systems, and the navigation array was completely destroyed. "Commander," Thrackmore's voice came over the intercom. "I must speak with you immediately." Unlikely alliance. When the cargo hold elevator opened, Elena got her first close look at humanity's former enemy. Thrackmore stood nearly 7 feet tall, his body covered in natural armor plating that gleamed with a metallic sheen. His face was angular and sharp, with large golden eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Despite his intimidating appearance, his voice carried a note of respect. "Commander Vasquez, your actions today have saved both our lives and possibly prevented a return to war. I am in your debt." Elena studied the alien warrior carefully. She'd expected arrogance or superiority, but instead found what seemed like genuine gratitude. "Just doing my job. But we're not out of trouble yet. My ship is falling apart, and we're drifting toward that planet down there." Thrackmore looked at the massive desert world filling their view screen. "Xerion 7. It appears on our star charts as uninhabited but potentially habitable. Perhaps we can make emergency repairs there. Maybe, if we survive the landing." Elena was already running calculations in her head. "The ship's too damaged for a controlled descent. We're going to crash, and crash hard. Then we must prepare for survival on an unknown world." Thrackmore said simply, "Commander, I propose we work together. Your species' technology and my people's survival skills may be our only hope." Elena extended her hand, a gesture she'd never thought she'd make to a Corvani. "Partners." Thrackmore's armored hand engulfed hers. His grip was firm but careful, clearly aware of human fragility. "Partners." Descent into hell. The next hour was a nightmare of failing systems and desperate preparations. Elena and Thrackmore worked side by side, securing supplies and preparing emergency equipment. The alien's 4-armed physiology allowed him to work twice as fast as Elena, while her engineering knowledge helped them prioritize the most critical systems. "Atmospheric entry in 10 minutes, the AI announced, its voice distorted by damage to the communication systems. Elena strapped herself into the pilot's chair while Thrackmore took the co-pilot position. His weight made the reinforced seat creak ominously. "You ever been in a ship crash before?" she asked. "Twice," Thrackmore replied calmly. "Both times during the war with your people. Survival depends on preparation and luck. Let's hope we have enough of both." The ship hit the atmosphere like a falling star. The hull groaned and buckled as superheated air tore at the damaged plating. Elena fought the controls, trying to find a landing spot that wouldn't kill them instantly. The planet's surface was a maze of red sand dunes, rocky outcroppings, and strange crystalline formations that glittered in the alien sun. "There," Thrackmore pointed with one of his secondary arms. "That flat area between the stone pillars. The sand will cushion our impact." Elena nodded, pouring all her remaining power into the attitude thrusters. The ship responded sluggishly, its hull beginning to break apart from the stress. "Hold on. This is going to hurt." The impact drove both of them deep into their crash restraints. Alina's world became a chaos of screaming metal, shattering glass, and the thunderous roar of a starship tearing itself apart. The starbound horizon carved a deep furrow through the sand before finally grinding to a halt against a cluster of crystal formations. Silence fell like a curtain. Alina's ears rang from the crash, and she could taste blood in her mouth. But she was alive. "Commander." Thrackmore's voice was strained but steady. "Still breathing." Alina gasped, releasing her restraints. "You?" "Injured but functional. We must assess our situation quickly. This planet may have predators attracted to the sound of our crash." Alina nodded, pushing herself out of her seat. Through the cracked bridge windows, she could see the alien landscape stretching endlessly in all directions. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, casting strange shadows across the dunes. In the distance, she could make out what looked like ruins of some ancient civilization. "Welcome to hell," she muttered, then looked at her unlikely companion, ready to see if humans and Corvani can survive together. Thrackmore's golden eyes gleamed with determination. "Commander, after today's events, I believe we can accomplish anything." Neither of them realized that their greatest challenges were yet to come, as the planet itself began to wake up around them. Working together, they managed to move the massive stone barrier. The interior of the dome was surprisingly well preserved, with intricate murals covering the walls and a central chamber that seemed designed for gathering or ceremony. More importantly, it was dry and secure. "Perfect timing," Alina said as the first winds of the sandstorm began to rattle the structure. They quickly moved their supplies inside and sealed the entrance behind them. Secrets in the stone. The electrical storm that accompanied the sandstorm turned night into day with constant lightning. Alina set up their emergency shelter, while Thrackmore examined the alien murals with fascination. His 4 arms allowed him to take detailed measurements and rubbings simultaneously. "Commander, these images tell a story," he said after several hours of study. "This species achieved great technological advancement, but they faced a catastrophic threat. Look here." Alina joined him at a particularly detailed section of wall art. The images showed humanoid figures with elongated limbs and multiple eyes working together to build massive structures. But later panels depicted something attacking their cities, creatures that looked disturbingly familiar. "Those look like the things that clawed our ship," Alina said grimly. "Indeed, it appears this planet's predators have existed for millennia." But observe this final panel. The last image showed the alien builders activating some kind of device that created a barrier of light around their settlements. The attacking creatures were held back, unable to penetrate the protective field. "Defensive technology," Alina breathed. "If we could figure out how it works." "My thoughts exactly. Your species' engineering capabilities combined with Corvani energy manipulation techniques might allow us to activate these defenses." They spent the night studying the murals and examining the dome's structure. Alina's technical background helped her identify what appeared to be power conduits running through the walls, while Thrackmore's sensitive hearing detected a faint humming that suggested dormant machinery. There, Alina pointed to a raised dais in the center of the chamber. "That's some kind of control interface, but it's designed for beings with very different hands than ours." Thrackmore flexed his 4 arms thoughtfully. "Perhaps not so different. My secondary limbs are more flexible than my primary ones. With your guidance, I might be able to operate the controls." First contact with the Guardians. The sandstorm passed by morning, leaving the desert transformed. New dunes had formed overnight, and strange crystalline growths had emerged from the sand like alien flowers. But Alina and Thrackmore had bigger concerns as they prepared to leave their shelter. "Movement at 2 o'clock, Alina reported, checking her weapon. "Multiple contacts, moving fast." Through the ruins came creatures that looked like they'd been carved from living shadow. Each stood nearly 8 feet tall, with elongated limbs ending in razor claws and eyes that glowed with inner fire. They moved with liquid grace, clearly built for hunting. 6 of them, Thrakmor observed calmly, his own weapons appearing in his hands with practiced efficiency. They have been tracking us since the crash. The creatures circled the dome like wolves, testing for weaknesses. Alina could see intelligence in their movements. These weren't just animals. They were tactical hunters working as a coordinated pack. "The control interface," Alina said urgently. "Can you activate it?" Thrakmor was already moving toward the dais, his 4 arms dancing over the alien controls. "The power signatures are building, but I need more time." The first creature tested the sealed entrance, its claws raking deep gouges in the ancient stone. The barrier held, but barely. Alina could see cracks beginning to form under the assault. "Whatever you're going to do it fast." Thrakmor's secondary arms made delicate adjustments while his primary limbs channeled raw energy into the control matrix. Alina watched in amazement as symbols began to glow throughout the dome, responding to the Corvani's bioelectric field. The change was immediate and dramatic. A barrier of shimmering light erupted from the dome's base, expanding outward to encompass the entire ruin complex. The shadow creatures recoiled from the field as if burned, their hunting cries turning to sounds of pain and frustration. "Incredible," Thrakmor said, his voice filled with wonder. "The ancient builders created a perfect fusion of technology and consciousness. The defense system responds to the operator's will and determination." Alina watched the creatures prowling just outside the light barrier, unable to enter but clearly unwilling to give up their prey. "How long will it hold?" "Unknown, but long enough for us to plan our next move. Building something new." Over the following days, Alina and Thrakmor transformed the ruins into a functional base of operations. Alina's engineering skills helped them repair and improve the ancient systems, while Thrakmor's warrior training provided security and tactical planning. They worked as partners, each contributing their species' greatest strengths. "The beacon array is almost ready," Alina reported as she completed work on their improvised distress signal. "Your people's quantum resonance technology combined with our emergency transmitters should reach both human and Corvani space." "Excellent. But Commander, I must ask, what happens when rescue arrives?" "The peace negotiations, the war between our peoples." Alina paused in her work, considering the question that had been weighing on both their minds. "I think we've already proven something important here. Humans and Corvani can work together, trust each other, even save each other's lives. Maybe that's a message worth sending to both our governments." Thrakmor's expression was thoughtful. "My people respect strength and honor above all else. Your actions during the pirate attack and our survival here demonstrate both qualities in abundance. I will recommend that the Corvani Empire recognize humans as worthy allies, not merely defeated enemies. And I'll make sure my report emphasizes that we never could have survived without Corvani cooperation. Sometimes the best diplomacy happens when governments aren't involved." As if summoned by their words, the beacon began to pulse with incoming signals. Multiple ships were responding to their distress call, both human and Corvani vessels approaching from different directions. "Looks like we're about to have visitors," Alina said with a grin. "Think they'll be surprised to find us working together." "Commander Elena Vasquez," Thrakmor said formally, using her full name for the first time. "It has been an honor to serve alongside you. Your species' reputation for determination and ingenuity is well deserved." Elena clasped his armored hand in both of hers. "The honor was mine, Thrakmor of the Corvani. Maybe we've started something here that's bigger than just survival." As the first rescue ships appeared in Xerion 7's purple sky, Alina and Thrakmor stood together in the ruins of an ancient civilization, living proof that former enemies could become the strongest of allies. Their survival had required the best of both species, human creativity and determination combined with Corvani strength and honor. The war might continue in the stars above, but here on this forgotten world, peace had already begun. Unity in survival. First dawn on Xerion 7. Elena woke to the sound of wind howling through twisted metal. Her body ached from the crash, and dried blood flaked from a cut on her forehead. The bridge of the starbound horizon was a wreck of sparking circuits and shattered displays. Through the broken viewports, she could see the twin suns of Sirian 7 painting the desert landscape in shades of gold and crimson. "Thrackmore," she called out, struggling to her feet. "Here, Commander." The Corvani's voice came from the rear of the bridge. Elena turned to see him examining the ship's structural damage with all four of his arms. "The main hull is fractured in 17 places. This vessel will never fly again." Elena nodded grimly. She'd expected as much. "What about our supplies?" "I have conducted a preliminary survey. Approximately 60% of our emergency equipment survived the crash. Water reclamation systems are functional, food supplies adequate for perhaps 20 days. However, we have a more immediate concern." Elena followed his gaze to the horizon, where a massive wall of red sand was building like a tidal wave. Sandstorm. Unlike any recorded in Corvani databases, the electromagnetic readings suggest it carries significant electrical charge. We must find shelter immediately. They worked together to salvage critical supplies from the wreckage. Elena's engineering training helped her identify useful components, while Thrackmore's natural strength allowed him to move debris that would have taken her hours to clear. Despite their different origins, they fell into an efficient working rhythm. "Commander, observe these markings," Thrackmore said, pointing to scratches on the ship's hull. "These were not caused by our crash. Something investigated our vessel during the night." Elena examined the gouges carefully. They were deep and made by something with razor-sharp claws. Big predator, probably attracted by the noise and heat signatures. She checked her sidearm and was relieved to find it intact. "We need to establish a defensive perimeter." "Agreed. I suggest we make for those ruins in the distance. Ancient structures often provide natural choke points for defense." The march to safety. The trek across the desert tested both of their limits. Elena's human physiology struggled with the intense heat and low humidity, while Thrackmore's heavy armor plating made him a walking furnace under the twin suns. They took turns carrying the heaviest equipment, each drawing on reserves of determination that surprised them both. "Tell me about your homeworld," Elena said as they paused to rest in the shadow of a crystalline formation. "I've read the intelligence reports, but they're probably wrong about most things." Thrackmore's golden eyes focused on the distant horizon. "Corvesh is a world of honor and ancient traditions. My people believe that strength comes from facing impossible challenges. We do not surrender, we do not retreat, and we do not leave comrades behind." "Sounds familiar," Elena replied with a tired smile. "Humans have similar ideas about not giving up, though we're probably more stubborn about it. Perhaps that is why our species have fought so fiercely. We are more alike than either side wished to admit." They resumed their march as the approaching sandstorm grew larger. The wind began to pick up, carrying stinging particles that forced them to wrap cloth around their faces. Elena's legs burned with exhaustion, but she pushed forward. Stopping meant death for both of them. The ruins appeared gradually through the heat haze. Ancient stone columns rose from the sand like the ribs of some massive skeleton. Carved symbols covered every surface, worn smooth by centuries of wind and weather. At the center of the complex stood a partially intact dome structure that promised shelter from the storm. "These are not Corvani," Thrackmore observed as they climbed the worn steps. "Nor human. The architecture suggests a species with different sensory organs and body structure." Elena ran her hands over the carved symbols. "They're beautiful, whatever they mean. And more importantly, they're solid." She tested the dome's entrance, finding it sealed but not locked. "Help me with this door,"